Hey guys, it's Aliel here with New Dawn Productions. In any case, God Rules is on my subscriptions list, and I noticed about 5 minutes in, he's still talking about the September 23rd, 2017 Revelation 12 sign, as if it's like a thing that's set in stone. And I thought something seemed quite wrong about it. I wanted to give him a shout out. I really do love your videos. And I want to give a shout out to the guys that I'm going to use as a resource and reference. That would be Bible Flockbox and Sling and Stone. All three of those channels will be found down into the description. Now, the first thing I wanted to go over, as you've obviously clicked here, you've seen the title, you know exactly what I'm going to be talking about. That is the Blood Moon Tetrads that lead all the way up to the September 23rd, 2017 sign. First off, I'm going to show you a clip from the Bible Flockbox explaining how these mega million-dollar church pastors are deceiving you. Roll that beautiful bean footage.
Mark Blitz is the originator of this theory, and he is also pastor of El Shaddai Ministries in Tacoma, Washington, a Hebrew roots congregation, and John Hagee supports this. He is an American founder and senior pastor of Cornerstone Church in San Antonio, Texas, a megachurch with more than 20,000 active members. Both of these individuals are supporters of Israel, which believe that Bible prophecies of the end time revolve around the nation of Israel, and this blood moon's prophecy that they have been proclaiming is no different. It revolves a lot around Israel as well. A scripture they quote to support their blood moons theory is Joel chapter 2 verse 31, which states, "The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord come." And what their theory is based on is Tetrads, which are 4 lunar eclipses in a row that gives the moon a reddish color. They usually happen within 2 years of each other. Now, Tetrads are very rare, and the 4th blood moon of the most recent Tetrad is scheduled to take place on September the 28th of 2015. By the way, the most recent Tetrad also takes place on the biblical feast days of Passover and Tabernacles. Pastor Mark Blitz claims that this is significant and can possibly be a sign that the second coming of Jesus will occur. The reason why he says this is because he claims that 3 Tetrads have occurred in the past and have coincided with significant events in Jewish history, including the Spanish Inquisition of 1492, when Israel became a nation in 1948, and when Israel captured Jerusalem in 1960. However, the Tetrads that Mark Blitz talks about don't really match up with events he's trying to associate them with. I'm going to play a clip from a YouTuber named Chris White that did a good job of exposing this.
The first point. When reviewing the historical accuracy of Blitz's claim that Jewish history seems to converge with lunar eclipse tetrads that fall on Jewish feast days, we find that it's not very accurate at all. So the first thing that we need to do is examine Hagee and Blitz's assertion that these tetrads actually lined up with significant events at all. So often we simply take for granted that this is true, and as we will see, that would be a huge mistake. Did you know that there were actually 2 other tetrad events that fell on Jewish holidays that Blitz found in the NASA computers? Well, he did, but he doesn't like to say much about those because, even according to him, nothing significant happened on those 2 occasions. Right there, that should give us pause. Okay, so how do we know that this upcoming tetrad in 2014-2015 won't be another dud like the other 2 that they don't like to mention? Based on these numbers, so far almost 50% of these tetrads on Jewish holidays don't mean a thing, even by their own admission. Another point is that the dates of the historical events for which these tetrads supposedly correlate do not seem to correlate very well at all to the dates of the tetrads themselves. For example, the Spanish Inquisition actually started some 15 years before the 1493-94 tetrad, and ended roughly 350 years later. They try to give this some credibility by saying that what the tetrad is really connected with is the so-called Alhambra decree issued on the 31st of March, 1492, which officially expelled the Jews from Spain. But even then, the first eclipse didn't occur until over a year later, and the last eclipse over 2 years later. So unless you call being off by a year God's way of predicting something, then this isn't a match. The next so-called match is supposed to be when Israel declared its independence in 1948 and won the war for independence the same year. The dates of the 1949-1950 Tetrad, again, didn't occur until over a year later, and didn't fall on any of the dates of Israel's victories, or on the day that the UN recognized them as a state, or any other significant date. Trust me, if there was any significance to the actual dates of these Tetrads, you would have heard about it. But the best they can do is, as we will see in the next one, coming within 10 months of an event. So yeah, the last one they say occurred in conjunction with the 6-Day War. But in reality, it didn't start until 10 months after the war ended. And the last eclipse didn't occur until a full year after that. Again, these three obvious non-matches look even worse when you consider that they have already thrown 2 sets of historical Tetrads in the trash because they couldn't find any historical events to match them with. So these 3 represent the best of the best, and that is pretty sad.
All right, point number 2. I'm going to explain how Protestantism never left the pagan roots of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, I have to do this before I get to point number 3, or you won't understand why point number 3 exists as it is. Point number 2, I'm going to quote the Chancellor Albert Smith for Cardinal of Baltimore Archdiocese in his letter dated February 10th of 1920. And I quote, "If Protestants would follow the Bible, they would worship God on the Sabbath day. By God is Saturday. In keeping Sunday, they are following the law of the Roman Catholic Church." Now I'm going to quote another, that's an end quote. I'm going to quote another letter. Our Sunday Visitor, dated February 5th, 1950, quote, "Practically everything Protestants regard as essential or important they have received from the Catholic Church. The Protestant mind does not seem to realize that in accepting the Bible and observing Sunday, in keeping Christmas and Easter, they are accepting the authority of the spokesman of the Church, the Pope." Unquote. Louis Gaston Ségur, Plain Talk About the Protestantism of Today, written in London by Thomas Richardson and Son, dated 1874. In line 213, quote, "Thus the observance of Sunday by the Protestants is a homage that they pay, in spite of themselves, to the authority of the Catholic Church." Anybody, and that's an unquote. Anybody goes into deep research of Martin Luther and the origins of Protestantism, you can basically see that we rejected the authority of the Pope and the authority of the Roman Catholic Church while practically keeping everything else. You also notice that the 2 main holidays of Roman Catholicism are also the 2 main holidays of Protestantism. They were never changed, they were never abandoned, they were never replaced with any sort of biblical holiday. If you would like to take the time to research that on your own, there will be an annotation on the screen right here, which will go to Jim Staley's old video on the origins and roots of the 2 main Catholic holidays observed by Protestants. Now, my point number 3 is that all of the signs spoken about today with regards to September 23rd, 2017 are pagan in origin. They are astrological symbols. All of the symbols in the sky used in reference to September 23rd, 2017 are pagan symbols that were observed and recognized by the ancient Greek empires, the ancient Roman Empire, and other Mediterranean and Middle Eastern cultures and peoples. We need to understand that the modern interpretation as it currently sits of that sign relies upon astrology and astrology interpretations and not the Bible. Astrology was comparable to witchcraft and is indeed occult in origin. You will ask any pastor these days if they should pay attention to their astrology predictions that's in the local tabloids. They'll tell you no. But at the same time, they will look at these predictions and with regards to September 23rd, 2017, and what it means, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, this is definitely the sign told about in the book of Revelation, chapter 12." Completely double-minded. Now, I'm going to explain to you here about the Bible. Isaiah chapter 47, verses 13 through 15. All the counsel you have received has only worn you out. Let your astrologers come forward, those stargazers who make predictions month by month, and let them save you from what is coming upon you. Surely they are like stubble. The fire will burn them up. They cannot even save themselves from the flame. Each of you goes on in his error. There is not one that can save you. Another, Daniel chapter 2, verse 2. So the king summoned the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers to tell him what he had dreamed. You will see here that astrologers are lumped in with sorcerers, enchanters, and magicians. Not good. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 26. Do not practice divination or sorcery. You will see here that in, that astrology is the practice of divination. You're looking at the stars and you're trying to predict your future. It's that divination was common among the pagan peoples of the biblical lands. When the Israelites were about to enter the promised land of Canaan, God warned them not to practice astrology, among other things. It says here in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 9, then 12, and also verse 14. Do not learn to imitate the detestable ways of the nations there. The nations you will dispossess. Listen to those who practice sorcery and divination. But as for you, the Lord your God has not permitted you to do so. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. You will see here that divination is actually regarded as a grave sin. It declares in 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 23, that rebellion is like the sin of divination, and arrogance is like the evil of adultery, or idolatry. Well, idolatry is adultery against our God, so I guess I had a Freudian slip there. And on to my final point will be that the 2017 sign was actually, in my personal opinion, I could be wrong, a sign of the seat of power or the coming of age of the Antichrist. There is some historical and biblical precedent for this. For one, so many Christians today are deceived by blatantly pagan and blatantly false information, but they just believe it because people in authority in the church are telling them so, and they're presenting it with smiles on their face, and they're saying that such and such is such way, when Jesus Christ himself warned us of false prophets in the end times, telling us about false signs, like he is here in the desert, no, he's in the Holy of Holies. The Revelation 12 sign is about the birth of the Messiah. Okay? The Messiah was not born in 2017. He was born around the turn of 2 millenniums ago. So who is this heralding as to being born or being born into the power that they are coming into possession of? Well, I'd like to quote a historical coincidence. It might be a coincidence. It might be biblical providence. But for starters, the birthday of Roman Emperor Augustus, who was the emperor at the time of Jesus Christ's birth was September 23rd. The astrological symbol that they've been using for the child in the Virgin's womb is the alleged planet Jupiter. Jupiter was the chief god of the Roman Empire, and you ask any biblical scholar and they will tell you that he is closely tied to Satan. Rome at the time of the writing of Revelation was deeply persecuting the Christian world, indeed executing and exterminating them, and Rome itself was referred to in Revelation as Babylon the Great, and Rome at the time, and even today, was known as the City of Seven Hills. The book of Revelation specifically states that the 7 heads of the beast in which the harlot rides were the 7 hills of the city. Coincidence or a biblical shout-out? You be the judge on that one. But it should be noted that the temple of Jupiter, Optimus Maximus, was located in Rome. Too many coincidences, if you ask me. And that's all I've got so far. If you enjoyed this content, I would appreciate it if you would leave a like and subscribe. If you would subscribe, also stay tuned, because I'm going to be uploading a new video next Sabbath detailing on what I personally believe the true meaning of the Revelation 12 sign is. And it's a lot more simple and a lot more biblical than you could possibly imagine. Alright, God bless and Shabbat Shalom.